Having relocated to the London Stadium in 2016, West Ham supporters had high hopes of bridging the gap between themselves and the self-styled Big Six. These hopes have thus far failed to materialise. A poor start to the 2016-17 season was followed by problems with the new stadium in terms of logistics, stewarding and atmosphere, and a spat with the council resulted in the capacity being capped at 57,000. In terms of finances, the boost from moving to the more modern stadium seems to have been a mirage in some ways, and the fans are unhappy. Losing their home is one thing, losing it with no financial benefits in terms of competing in the player market is quite another. In 2016-17, West Ham's overall income rose by 29%, which makes it look as though Davids, Sullivan and Gold have masterminded a superb transformation. Over the last 5 years, the club's income has more than doubled, but how much of this is due to the owners and how much is happenstance? Moving from a 35,000 to a 66,000 capacity stadium should have, in theory, created a significant bump in matchday income. However, the move only resulted in a 6% increase from £26.9 million to £28.6 million. There are a number of possible reasons for this. Firstly, West Ham had a dispute with the landlords which restricted the capacity to 57,000, although this is still significantly higher than the Berlin ground. To give some credit to the owners, they made season ticket prices available from £299 and under 16s for just £99. It could also be that the figures for the final season at the Berlin were inflated by extra income generated in relation to moving, as they are substantially higher than the previous season, 14-15. This graph shows what proportion of a club's total income is generated by matchday income. For West Ham, matchday is worth about £1 in every £6 the club makes. If the owners are serious about competing with bigger clubs, they need to increase their matchday income. Conversely, fans aren't exactly being taken to the cleaners with regards to the prices. Added to that, more seats are available to everyday fans as opposed to corporate seats, which in theory are worth more to the club. Broadcasting income was up by over a third to £119 million. This was due to the Premier League's new deal with BT and Sky commencing. This income will be largely consistent for 3 years, but could be increased by further TV appearances, finishing higher up the league table and qualifying for European competitions. Winning the Europa Cup was worth £40 million in broadcasting income to Manchester United last season. West Ham picked up £400,000 for their stint. West Ham's commercial income rose by a quarter to £35 million. They don't have the international appeal of United and Liverpool, so their direct competition tends to involve clubs like Newcastle, Everton and Southampton, for example. However, many potential sponsors don't particularly care where their logo appears so long as it gets regular exposure on TV. In this regard, the stadium will be a useful asset. Player wages and amortisation are usually a club's biggest costs, which is the case for West Ham. Their wage bill has grown by 12% to £95 million in 2017. That's a significant increase, but it's still behind Everton and Leicester and some others in their peer group. Aside from running costs, there are also interest costs because of borrowing. Fans might have thought that the Berlin sale would repay all of their debt, but this isn't the case. For 2016-17, interest costs worked out at £97,000 per week. Whilst this is lower than the previous season, half of it went to shareholders in the form of loans from Gold and Sullivan. This does mean that they, strictly speaking, are correct in claiming to have never taken a penny as a wage from the club, but £50,000 to £60,000 per week in interest is still a sizable sum. It is common for owners to lend money to their clubs. Mike Ashley at Newcastle, for example, does this, but many of those owners do not charge interests on those loans. Sullivan and Gold have lent West Ham £45 million, but with a 6% interest rate. They've charged the club £14,875,000 in interest on loans since 2011-12. They eventually paid themselves £10 million of this sum in August 2017. West Ham stated that they made a record profit of £43 million for 2016-17, which is an after-tax figure. However, this is after making considerable gains on player disposals, including Dimitri Payet, which generated profits of £28.4 million. The issue with profits on player sales is that they are volatile figures as it depends on individual player disposals. West Ham's EBIT profit excluding one-off transactions and player sales before interest and tax, was £11.4 million. Much lower than the quoted figure, but still an improvement on the previous year. The main driver of this has been the extra £33 million of TV money. In summary, the stadium move doesn't seem to have pushed the club onto the next level of success in the Premier League. There is room for improvement, but financial fair play laws make some aspects of this difficult for clubs like West Ham. Fans will just be hoping that they didn't lose their spiritual home for nothing.